Why do we experience suffering? This is a question I'm asked quite often. We do not establish what is right or wrong. God is the only one who can do that. God never said that while we were on this earth, we will never suffer. To understand this hard truth, we need to fully understand why there is suffering in the world to begin with. Adam and Eve were the first created humans of God. They were given one rule: do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it, you will surely die. Genesis 2:17. They were given plenty of other trees, but this tree was off limits. The serpent, or Satan, knew if he could just get Adam and Eve to eat from that one tree, that they would fall from God's good grace and be under the curse of the devil forever. So he slithered over to Eve and cleverly convinced her to eat from the tree, and Eve encouraged Adam to do so also. Because of this great betrayal, sin entered the world, and along with sin came jealousy, fear, hate, lust, greed, and suffering as well, not just for Adam and Eve, but for all of their offspring. I say all of that to say this: it is not God's will for his creatures to have to go through suffering at all. Some may still say, well, he's mighty. Why isn't he mighty enough to get rid of suffering? We will always be sinful creatures in this sinful world, so unfortunately, suffering is going to remain here. But he has saved us from suffering after we leave. You see, we were all doomed to eternal damnation and darkness away from God after this life because of the sins of Adam and Eve. However, he made a way to break the curse of this world by sacrificing Jesus to suffer with us and die for us. So if we choose to follow Jesus, we can live with him at the place of no sadness. It sort of seems silly when you hear someone say, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, Jesus never sinned. However, he suffered worse than any of us has or ever will suffer. And he said this: I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. John 13:16. If Jesus experienced suffering, who are we to think we should be immune to it? Look at the book of Job. God was very pleased with him, and even raved to Satan about how blameless, upright, and loyal he was. So the devil tested Job's faith and loyalty, killing his children, taking his riches, and covering his body with boils. Regardless of the suffering he endured, the miserable Job still followed the ways of the Lord. There technically isn't a suffering of the innocent. This is because we all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. So no one is innocent. Then again, some may say, well, what about babies? What about the mentally disabled? How have they sinned? Well, we are all sinners by nature, including babies. And given the ability to exercise their free will, babies also will choose to engage in sin. Sin is our first instinct. It was inherent in us before we were born. Some suffering is what it takes for us to open our eyes to what's really important. Suffering is also a stepping stone for some of us to search for the direction and will of God. God doesn't allow suffering without telling us its origin. He also doesn't allow suffering without offering advice and assurance. Before you accuse of God of abandoning us, open your Bible and read what he says about suffering. God bless.